Of the many battles that defined the Kargil war, the one for .4875 was perhaps the toughest. This rare footage of the war shows soldiers of 13 Jammu and Kashmir Rifles planting India's flag at a height of 16,000 feet in the Mushko Valley. The bravest of the brave regiment was led into battle by Colonel Y.K. Joshi.
This feature was captured on the 5th of this month. We launched attack on the 4th. This importance of point.
A battle that forged heroes like Captain VIKRAM BATRA and Captain Anuj Nayyar. In the summer of 1999, Pakistani intruders had captured several mountain tops, including .4875, overlooking the strategic Srinagar-Leh highway. With the enemy sitting at the top, raining bullets and boulders, India's offensive had become an uphill battle. Clearing .4875 had become priority. The task was given to 13 Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. On 6th and 7th of July, Captain Batra volunteered to head a party to clear a crucial ledge on .4875. The climb was almost vertical. It began to snow. The enemy kept firing from the top. To make matters worse, Captain Batra was running a high fever. Yet, he and his troops kept climbing through the night. As they closed onto the ledge, the enemy was now eyeball to eyeball. The fight became hand to hand. Captain Batra, all of 24, killed 5 enemy soldiers and despite being injured, led from the front, kept the attack on and did the near impossible. On 8th morning, .4875 was recaptured, but 13 Jammu and Kashmir Rifle had lost their SHER. The young Indian soldier who fought ferociously, died fearlessly and became the face of the Kargil war. Today, .4875 is called Batra Top. 20 years after Captain VIKRAM Batra and 13 Jammu and Kashmir Rifle entered the annals of India's military history, his unit made a pilgrimage back to Batra Top, led by Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi. Durga Mata Ki Jai! Ki Jai! Ki Jai! Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi today is the Northern Army Commander responsible for protecting the LAC and the LOC. He's sitting down for an interview with CNN News 18 to talk about the Kargil war, about China's aggression at the LAC and Pakistan's push at the LOC. Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, thank you very much for your time here on CNN News 18. 21 years ago, in the heights of Kargil, in the middle of a raging conflict, you took over the command of 13 Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. Today, you are the Northern Army Commander, the guardians of these very heights. When you look back, do you feel a sense of loss or a sense of pride?
Well, Shreya, those were challenging times. And as battalion commander, it was an honor for me to lead the finest troops into battle. You know, it's a dream which every officer harbors, and it came true for me. I look back at those days, with a sense of reverence and gratitude to the men who made the supreme sacrifice for the country. It was my duty then to recapture those features, and it is my duty now to ensure the sanctity. Putting into perspective, the canvas has expanded exponentially, and I'm humbled by the responsibility the nation and the Indian Army has entrusted to me. It's a difficult task, and I'm aware of the challenges which Northern Command faces. Loss and pride are emotions which are, very minuscule compared to emotions like accountability and responsibility, which are key to my charter of duties. It is my responsibility to ensure sanctity of the borders. At the same time, I am accountable for the well-being of troops who are braving the elements stoically and ensuring the territorial integrity of the nation and also ensuring peace in the hinterland.
Sir, your battalion was conferred the title of Bravest of the Brave. You had 2 Paramveer Chakras, Captain VIKRAM Batra and Rifleman Sanjay Kumar. We know the legend of Captain Batra, but do you remember the last conversation you had with him?
Yes, Shreya, I very vividly remember. Those are the words, what I spoke to him, I can never forget. How it happened was that point 4875 in the Mashko Valley had become a thorn, in our side. We had launched the attack on the 4th of July and established a foothold by the early hours of the 5th of July. The progress thereafter had been stalled as we were pinned down by a well-sighted enemy Sangha which would not allow further progress. We were in contact at a distance of about 100-150 meters from the Sangha and had been taking casualties. This happened for a period of 2 days, the 4th, the 5th and the 6th. I was echeloned about 200 meters to the rear of where VIKRAM Batra was, and on the early morning, 7th of July, I spoke to him and told him that we need to get out, of this fix. And I asked him to take a patrol to see if we could find a route to outflank this position from some other direction. Immediately after the conversation happened, I spoke to him on the radio set. VIKRAM moved out with the patrol, and while scouting for a route, he was again pinned down by effective enemy fire. As I can visualize now, it appears to me that VIKRAM, while he was on the patrol, realized that there was no way to outflank this position. He took a decision on the spot, threw caution to the winds, and charged this Sangha. Spurred by this charge, the rest of the company followed suit and captured the entire area that was point 4875. And like they say, the rest is history. However, this daredevil act displayed by VIKRAM on that fateful morning of the 7th of July 1999 will remain etched in my living memory.
Sir, Captain Batra now guards the heights of Kargil. Point 4875 is now called Batra Top. Why was it important for you that happened?
It's very important that we remember our martyrs. The snow-clad peak, now known as VIKRAM Batra, point 4875 in the Mashko Valley on the line of control, is like a shrine for me, for my battalion, 13 Jack Rifles, in fact for the entire nation. Captain Batra is an icon of bravery and selfless service for the nation. In today's materialistic world, where personal gratification is paramount, here was a young officer knowing very well that he was putting his life on the line and still did it without batting an eyelid. His devotion to duty and sacrifice had been etched in the minds of the present generation with the epic Ye Dil Mange More, as well as, and also, either I will hoist the tricolour or come back wrapped in it. But we remember that there is also a cruel fact that our memory is short-lived, and VIKRAM Batra's sacrifice had to be made eternal, and hence the christening of point 4875 as Batra Top. This was the first time this has happened, and not the last time too. And I have the firm opinion that we have many VIKRAM Batras ready to respond to the nation's calling. And the future of the Indian Armed Forces is in good hands, with spirited youngsters joining our folds, inspired by the tales of valor of legends like Captain VIKRAM Batra.
Sir, we've all seen the videos from 1999 where you and your men are seen burying Pakistani soldiers in the heights of Kargil once the conflict was over. Why did you do it? Because a lot of people can say these were, after all, enemy soldiers.
That's right. Shreya, a lot has been spoken about this act of ours. But I think, that was the most natural thing to do. That's the difference between civility and barbarism. That Pakistani soldier had also made the supreme sacrifice for his nation. And as a soldier, I would respect his gallantry and bravery. He was an enemy when he was alive, but after his death, he was just a soldier who deserves all the dignity in death which can be afforded to him. The Geneva Conventions also clearly mandate the treatment of the dead in the battlefield. And believe you me, despite what one may say about Pakistan as a nation, I bear no malice to the individual soldier who was deployed on the icy heights of Kargil. After all, he too was doing his job and laid down his life while doing it.
As we look at Kargil, another enemy is at the door. China. 12 weeks on, the standoff between Indian and Chinese troops in eastern Ladakh continues. The silence high up in the mountains of Ladakh is often punctuated with the deafening sound of the deadly Apache helicopters these days. Night operations are on at a forward airbase near Leh, some 200 kilometers from Galwan Valley. Combat air patrols are on through the night. As day breaks, India's frontline fighter jets, the Sukhois, take to the skies. These are heavy, all-weather, long-range fighters that have been deployed at forward bases facing China. The threat of a full-blown conflict that looked imminent a month ago has abated, but the standoff between Indian and Chinese troops is far from over.
This is not your bloody area.
This is not your area.
It has gone on for 12 weeks now. India is preparing for the long haul. The Raksha Mantri, speaking to troops in Ladakh, injected a sense of realism on where the process of disengagement is headed.
मामला हल होना चाहिए, लेकिन कहां तक हल होगा अभी इस संबंध में मैं पूरे कोई गारंटी नहीं दे सकता हूं.
Till then, 40,000 troops, tanks, artillery guns, air defense systems, fighter jets and missiles continue to be deployed on either side of the LAC. De-escalation or thinning down of this build-up is on the agenda, but there is no time frame yet. After the Galwan clashes that left 20 Indian soldiers dead, trust levels on the ground are at their lowest. As the army prepares for the long haul, it is breaking its silence on the LAC standoff for the first time. Lieutenant General Joshi, the man in charge of the LAC, is speaking to CNN News 18 on what is happening right now in eastern Ladakh. Sir, 21 years after Kargil, India is facing yet another challenge at its borders. Could you tell us, could you tell the country, what is the situation on the ground right now?
Well, Shreya, it's a predicament that we have two live borders. That notwithstanding, the Indian Army has acquitted itself with distinction, defending the territorial integrity of the nation and maintaining the sanctity of its borders. Along the northern borders, we are presently engaged with the PLA in a military dialogue to resolve the situation. A process of disengagement has been initiated after 4 rounds of talks at the Corps Commander level, and the same is happening on the ground, and also being verified by commanders on the ground to ensure its veracity and correctness. It's a complex and integrated process which needs diligent execution. Once we have been able to achieve the complete disengagement, we would transcend to de-escalation, which would obviously be guided by the principle of mutual and equal security. The Indian Armed Forces would take all measures to ensure the security of the line of actual control.
Sir, the RM has made a realistic assessment of the process of disengagement when he was in Ladakh, that there is no guarantee to what extent talks will help. What is your assessment as far as the talks and the process of disengagement is concerned?
Well, Shreya, there's a method to every process. And our ongoing military engagement with the PLA in an effort to diffuse the situation is no different. There is a certain commitment required from the two sides, which is essential for the process to move ahead positively and deliver the outcomes that are desirable. There are certain factors, though, such as the territorial integrity of the country, that are not negotiable at all. And hence, there is no question of compromising these. While we are investing sincerely in this ongoing endeavor, to bring about peace along the borders, we also remain prepared at all times for any eventuality.
Sir, would you say the standoff at the LAC is the biggest challenge of your professional life, or would that be Kargil?
Well, Shreya, I think that would be like something like comparing apples to oranges. You know, the challenge of Kargil and the present situation are in a totally different domain. And for me to pick one would not be right. You know, each situation has its own peculiarities. Just for the sake of taking the argument further, you know, my mandate then and now cannot be compared. You know, we are more capable and modern army with better weapon systems and equipment at its disposal, and these are game changers. You know, as a professional soldier, one grows and accumulates the capabilities to discharge the duties, you know, entrusted. Yes, point 4875 was a challenge then in the given circumstances, and the line of actual control on Eastern Ladakh today is a challenge. You know, we as an organization concluded that situation in 1999 to our satisfaction then, and so would be in this case too.
So how long will the standoff in Eastern Ladakh continue in your estimation? Do you see this stretching through the winter?
This is a hypothetical question, you know, I would say, which would lead me to make conjectures. What I can tell you in simple words is that we shall continue all efforts to restore the status quo ante along the line of actual control. You know, I believe that negotiations and the process of disengagement and the commitment of both sides to adhere to the laid down methodology would dictate the timelines of the standoff.
Sir, what would you say about the people of Ladakh who have stood by the Indian Army through this Chinese aggression?
Shreya, I'll say, you know, while in Ladakh, the armed forces have been overwhelmed by the support from every corner of the country. You know, this kind of national fervor energizes the soldier who is defending the nation on the barren and inhospitable landscape of Ladakh. As far as the Ladakhi people are concerned, I must tell you that I'm the colonel of the regiment of the Ladakh Scouts, and I can swear by their battle hardiness and their bravery. You know, the son of the soil, he's a force multiplier. When you look at braving the elements and still being able to produce optimum results. Even the common Ladakhi man and woman have gone out of the way to assist the armed forces in every possible way, and we remain indebted to them for the support and assistance.
So we are seeing an increased number of ceasefire violations at the LOC. In your opinion, is that linked to the situation that is currently ongoing at the LAC?
Well, yes, there's been an increase, you know, about a 40% increase in the ceasefire violations in comparison to last year for the same period. You know, however, it's pertinent to mention here that the LC dynamics during this standoff in Eastern Ladakh have generally conformed to the Pakistani routine pattern of operations. You know, the figures do not depict a spike during this flare-up on the LAC. You know, having said that, I must also say that there is no let-up in its nefarious design to infiltrate terrorists under the shadow of ceasefire violations, at the same time provide material, financial, ideological support to the terrorist outfits operating in Jammu and Kashmir. The anti-infiltration grid of the armed forces has been extremely effective and to a very large extent turned off the tap of influx of foreign terrorists into the valley. And this has taken off the sting of the terrorist groups with local recruits, you know, neither having the training nor the ideological termity to withstand the armed forces.
So, since you have raised the issue of infiltration of terrorists into the valley, what do you make of the recruitment of local youth by terrorist organizations?
Local recruitment, you know, is definitely a concern for all of us. The youth of J&K should benefit from the opportunities that the nation affords, you know, rather than wasting the time and life of their own life and time, as well as the families, by falling prey to Pakistan's, you know, vitriolic propaganda. Presently, the local recruitment is largely restricted to 3 districts of South Kashmir, and I'm happy to state that the youth from most of the districts of Jammu and Kashmir have shunned violence. Notwithstanding, since I have taken over, I have charted 3 clear lines of effort to nullify this recruitment, that is to prevent, to protect, and to empower. Effort to prevent the development of a new generation of radicalized youth in Kashmir. Effort to protect the youth from the influence of OJWs who are spewing vitriol. We are engaging the youth into more lucrative and commercially viable ventures of education and vocational training. And finally, effort to empower the families and other vectors of society to develop a counter-narrative to the ideological narrative which is aimed at channelizing the youth to terrorism.
Sir, the armed forces have met with resounding success in eliminating terrorists in the last 6 months in the valley. However, there has been minimum collateral damage even under the overhang of COVID. What are the armed forces doing differently this time?
Well, Shreya, the credit goes to the soldiers on the ground, who have surmounted the COVID pandemic, and also to the commanders who have devised novel and effective protocols for operation under the shadow of the coronavirus. We have also taken special care to ensure that we do not allow collateral damage to take place, even at the cost of the terrorists getting away. The terrorists today have a very low survivability rate and do not survive more than a month after joining a tanzeem. Forced preservation and prevention of loss of life or limb of the common man has also become very paramount for us. This has frustrated the adversary as he feeds on the loss of Kashmiri life and property to instigate violence and agitation, which then assumes, a vicious cyclic nature. Here I must also acknowledge the fact that all law enforcement agencies are working in complete synergy in the valley, and this is evident from the INT network, which has galvanized both human and technical intelligence, which allows us to execute clinical INT-based operations with minimum use of force and for maximum effect. I must also acknowledge here the resolve of the Awam who have rejected terrorism in totality.
In conclusion, General Joshi, how do you see the next 6 months pan out for you?
Well, Shreya, we are living in challenging times and the situation will continue to be so. But then, we as the professional armed force are guardians of frontiers and will do whatever it takes to maintain the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. The faith and trust the nation has reposed in us has to be honored, and hence we shall stand steadfast in efforts to do the same. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, General Joshi, for your time here on CNN News 18.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.